And it's great to be back here at Cleanroom Tech. We came last year and talked around a similar topic. My colleague Nick did that. And we're going to give you the next kind of update around this technology. We are a double act, but don't expect any comedy. Okay, this is a serious topic. And you can read about me, but I spend my life helping predominantly pharmaceutical clients address sustainability topics, particularly around energy efficiency, but we get into water efficiency use as well. And EECO2 does that with many global organisations all around the world.
So I'm going to start and say some of you may recognise me, and that's because actually on the publicity for this event, I'm actually one of the photos that they have up from 2018. I'm sitting next to Sue from Technomec. Keith said there aren't any jokes. Well, let's see what you think. Mycologist by training, so fungi, aspergillus was what I did my PhD in. So here we go. That makes me a fungi to be with. They don't get better. 22 years with the PhD in some of the microbiology, working in aseptic techniques and sterile environments. 12 years working mainly with MSD it was, sterile suites, filling rooms, live organisms that we were trying to class as sterile. So that's, I suppose, me.
Thanks. I'm delighted that David's agreed to join me on the platform today to talk about this really interesting project. So the agenda, I'll just give you a recap of the kind of dynamic control, the innovation technology that we're bringing to the industry. Very briefly, kind of the basic concepts of how we're approaching it. David will then talk about Cambridge Pharma particularly, and the facility that is now built and in commissioning, and we'll give you a walkthrough of that. Topic came up last year around qualifications. How on earth are you going to qualify this facility? Because it's totally different to anything else. That's true. It's still a challenge, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend that it's easy, but we can talk through some of the approaches that we're taking to that. And then, of course, we'll show you what it does in terms of what it's going to deliver for Cambridge Pharma and what we're getting now. Okay. There will be time for questions at the end, of course. So, as we know, clean rooms are critical for many of the products that we manufacture. They're also very energy-intensive spaces. And today, in the way which we generally operate clean rooms is kind of, we have a design criteria, some supply air rates, some air change rates into the facility, and when we're operating the facility, maybe there's high emissions generations from people moving about or from process. But if any of you walked around a pharmaceutical facility, I've walked around maybe hundreds, most of the time there's very little going on actually in the spaces. So we're running these very energy intensive spaces all the time, and there's very little activity in them very often. And you can see that from the chart on the right there. This is in operation data in a grade C, a number of grade C rooms. Where this is 0.5 micron, greater than or equal to 0.5 micron. All the rooms are less than 3% of the class limit in operation. So all of that blank space there is safety margin, if you want, but it's very much cleaner than it really needs to be for the process. Why is this important? Because we're talking about the amount of air that we're processing through the clean rooms has a big effect on the fan power particularly, but also heating and cooling, but mainly fan power. And we only need to change the volume there a little bit to have a big impact on the energy consumed. So if I reduce the flow by 10%, theoretically there's a 28%, nearly 30% reduction. Okay, you lose something for inefficiency, but you know, it's a big impact. So too, if we have 10% more air than we really need in those spaces at any one time, you've added 30% to your energy bill for running that facility. So it's important to get this right, and lots of people talk about how we deliver efficient clean rooms and ISO 14644 Part 16 that Connor over here and I and maybe some others in the room worked on, gets right to the concept of let's design the clean rooms to be as efficient as they can be and to be right for the processes that are in them, and not to over-egg the pudding, if you like. So where we were coming from is, well, okay, if the activity and the particle generation rate in the room is variable, you know, and night times there's nothing there at all because there's no people and they've all gone home, weekends the same, and why can't we vary the flow to these spaces to deal with the contamination at that point in time? So this is what the intelligent clean room control system does. So we're actually detecting the particle contamination in the space, and we're varying the flow, the airflow, supply airflow, to the rooms to maintain a fixed level, essentially. So that fixed level can be 10% of the class limit. So we've got that safety margin. We're still well within control. Could be 20%, could be 50% when there's no production going on. You know, it's entirely variable and based upon the risks of what's happening. We also, at the same time, so we're just talking about particles, there are also critical factors that we need to control. So temperature and humidity, clearly, pressures. If we're varying the flow, we need to have very good control of pressure. We're actually monitoring oxygen levels in the room because, again, we're varying outside air rates and we need to make sure we've got enough for people in the room. And we can also, as I said, vary the set points on the percentage of class limit we want to control to. So that's what ICCS for us does. It takes all of those inputs and variables and determines what the output needs to be, particularly for flow. So that's great from an energy point of view, but clients actually want compliant facilities. So we also have a facility at Cambridge Pharma that David will talk through the detail, that facility was a quality-led design. So we wanted to, or the client wanted to, and we wanted to build a facility that was really world-class in terms of its approach to quality and compliance. We wanted high performance under all clean room operation conditions. And what we've got is the ability to measure the real-time continuous sort of monitoring of the room conditions, all of the room conditions, all of the critical room conditions, including particulate levels in a grade C environment, which you wouldn't normally do. And what we've got is something that delivers much lower operating costs for the client, but also critically is absolutely gives us more understanding of what's happening in the space and more control of that and more data to allow us to understand how that room's performing. David.
Take the controller as well. So give you a little bit of background to the project. We are Cambridge Pharma, who are a new CMO or company. Our kind of sister company was set up about 12 years ago by Matthew Young, who had worked for years in developing auto-injectors and other devices. And what he had found was that they're often not centered around the patient, or they can always do better, but it was always being driven by cost and by time, and he wanted to make something different. That company still is around, but obviously that's a development company, so they've set up our company to do the actual manufacturing. But we have that similar ethos that we were looking for something a little bit different. We're prepared to try something a little bit new. We're not just going for straight down the middle, the cheapest, quickest thing that we can actually achieve. And I think as we go through it, you'll see that we've actually taken some chances here, but I think they're quite good because actually what we really were after was the compliance. When we tried to get our drug product filled, to go into our auto-injectors, we were turning up at CMOs, and they basically went, okay, you've got a novel container. This isn't one that comes off the shelf. It's going to take us a long time to qualify it. It's going to take us a while to set the system up. So just like all good events, so I'm going to plug the drinks event this evening, my CEO sat down with the owner of the company one evening, and they went, ha ha ha, why don't we make our own clean room? They brought me in about 3 years ago. We've been through numerous designs. We've worked with some CMOs on products that we currently have. But finally, we are here. We're making our own clean room. We knew from the clients that we have, which are either very, very small startups or some of the larger ones, that we're going to have a different variety of standards and needs. In actual fact, we had one Japanese customer that we're still working with who basically said, yeah, if you're in grade C, we expect full grade B gowns, coveralls, face masks, everything, gloves. So we're looking at different standards across there from different companies. Some companies just go, give us the product as quick as you can. Others are, this is what our corporate standards are, please achieve it. So we had to make a design that could cover those aspects. But the main thing that we wanted to do was look at the compliance. 12 years ago, pretty well to the week, I started my first managerial position in a clean room. So a couple of filling rooms, a couple of sterilization rooms, all operating under grade A air supply. I came in, the manager had left a lovely package for me. She had left about a month before I arrived, and in my in tray was a nice big pile of deviations related with outer specifications for particles within the clean rooms. Everybody knows if you're working in grade A, grade B, you're going to get them at some point. It takes a lot of time to sit down with the quality department, go through those deviations. Even if it's just one spike, you still need to actually explain why it's there and write in your justification. I also have done a couple of years of auditing and looking after CMOs, and I know as an auditor, I go into places, I pick up the reports, the quality reports, and you look at it and you go, house specifications. Can I have your report? And what we're trying to actually achieve really in clean rooms is a steady state. So when we started talking with EECO2, and they're saying, yeah, we can start ramping up the air to make sure, we were only initially looking for setback overnight. When you suddenly start talking about ramping up the air during production as different amounts of people come into the room, and you're beginning to control that, instead of having those spikes that you saw, and everybody has seen them, you monitor the clean room, people go in to clean it, bang, there's the spike where the people came in, that's where they started getting the mop out. Suddenly you're beginning to control some of those peaks, and you're actually managing to get a more consistent environment. That's something that we thought would be really quite good to be able to sell to our customers as well. So that was actually why we started talking to them a couple of years ago. What we also found is companies are going to come to us with either a new product or one product that's on the market. They're not going to have a massive product and go, there you go, thank you very much. It's a production, out the door, here we go. It's very limited, very controlled product. So we're not going to be operating 24/7. We're actually going to fill it, then they're going to inspect it. They're going to actually want to do some tests on it before they go and sacrifice or give up a little bit more of their product to put in the next batch that they need to make. So for large chunks of our time, our facility isn't actually going to be operating as a GMP facility. It's not going to be operating filling. So we have a lot of downtime, and as Keith said, we're now supplying a large amount of air, we're environmental monitoring it, and all of the other things that go with that. But we're not actually really there doing anything. And it's cheaper for our customers to rent our rooms than it is to actually kind of try and get through the product and do it quickly. So for us, any energy savings are an added bonus to that. Also, we're using isolators, and we'll go through a little tour of the facility later. We're using isolators, so we're grade C backgrounds. It's uncommon to monitor grade C. With the system that we've got here, we will actually see that we get 24/7 data for those rooms. Right, first time presenting to an audience in about 20 years, and they give me a video. Here we go. Yay. All right, get used to some spinning. We'll go through the facility, but as you can kind of see, we've got, this is actually from a Metaport camera. So a bit like, you know, you Google Street Map when you can jump around from places to places on it, and you will see us jumping around. So this is actual real picture generated from this camera. You can see through the middle, we've got a green zone. That's our grade C core, so autoclaves and wash in the middle, and 2 filling rooms either side of it. We have blue corridor around the outside. So as I've done before, blue corridor is grade D, grade C, green, and guess what color the gowns are going to be in each room so you can work out which category you're in. The flow of product is from the top, which you've seen, and going down, so it's full unidirectional. As we said, we're jumping around a little, but we're now into the autoclave room. So we have an autoclave room and a washer, both double-ended. So dirty comes into the clean area here for the autoclave, and again, through the autoclave out into the filling room, or we can do single-ended, and we can pass it through into the other filling room on the other side. You can just see, just missed it, the particle counters there, which we'll pick up in this room here. Going into the filling room, jumping around. This is now the filling room. As you can see, we are still in the point of classifying it, or not classifying it, qualifying it. So you will see the odd bit around. Some of the equipment is there. This is our soft-walled isolator, flat base plates, so we can bring in different equipment, different types of fill. So we're looking to be able to be quite quick, quite responsive, and being able to change things around quite quickly on this. We do actually have an air shower, and there is somewhere a video of me going through the air shower being blasted. It's also, as I've told my team, that it's probably going to be a great place to be when it gets really hot during the summer. Have a nice fresh air blowing over you. Great if you're a pollen sufferer as well. You've just seen the grade D corridor there, which has the blue flooring around it. And again, we're now going into the washroom. You saw the concrete floor. The tacky mats are going in this week, finally. Grade D washroom. You can see that we've got the chemical bag, chemical spill kit still sitting on a table rather than actually hanging up. The orange doors, again, we color coordinated. So the orange door is going out to the outside, back into the CNC, and these are through the roller doors to the second filling room where we have a 5,000 unit automated machine. I haven't seen Paul Stanway here yet, but it's one of his bits of kit. As you can see, we're in the qualification. We've got bits missing off the side whilst we're doing that. We've got some gloves still out. This was 3.5 minutes. I thought this was going to last forever. It's done. Qualification. We've had 3 meetings with the MHRA. They've been very positive about what we were trying to achieve, and we did actually ask them at the beginning, should we go with a fixed rate air and then try and incorporate how we're going to actually set it up to do variable air rate changes. And they were like, why are you going to change it? Why don't you just go straight in? If you think it's going to work, do it. And so far, we've got it switched on. We're beginning, and Keith will talk about it, we're beginning to see particle counts in the rooms. They all look very under control, very well maintained. You've got to remember, at the moment, people are just gowned in white suits, you know. They're not the full gown. We're not making them strip down to underwear and put on the underpieces. It's just a coverall. We're just trying to stay clean as opposed to actually maintain GMP. We're basically going to follow particles. If the particles are under control, we're expecting our viable organisms to also be under control. You have to remember, new facilities, we are going to be quite a good standard anyway. We're operating, as I said, with the Japanese company. We've got quite a high level of gowning, slightly higher. It's not a grade B, but it is slightly higher than maybe most grade Cs would be on the way that we're enforcing it. We will obviously monitor our pressures, temperatures and humidities, but our temperatures and humidities are as much for human comfort. We don't actually have any products that require a temperature control. But again, we are seeing very stable controls throughout the room. Our humidities are down at the 45% mark, which again isn't going to be the best conditions for growth of any organisms within it. As I said, I used to look after grade B filling rooms, and I've qualified them every 6 months. I don't think we're going to do much different to what we've done in those in this facility. Following the principle that if the particles are under control, then so should the other viable organisms. We are going to monitor the rooms, as you would, with an increased amount of monitoring. We'll work out where our worst case scenarios are. We will probably look at some offsets on it, because we're probably going to we have 2 particle counters in each room, 1 at each end. There will be worse aspects in some rooms. There will be some good spots. So what we're going to do is calibrate that up on the offset to some of the worst areas. So that will be our 10% that we're aiming for. And then we should, over time, hopefully be able to say that actually, yeah, we are, with the constant air changes, we are having good environmental background. But that's our initial qualification step. And then over time, we'll be able to add extra data into that to correlate particles along with viables. I think it's you.
Okay, so I'm going to show you some sort of early results of what we're seeing in the clean room at the moment. So the current approach to operational qualification, we will obviously do that at rest, and we've got some initial results there that you can see. So this is we're going to do the at-rest qualification at the minimum airflow rate in each suite, which we think is going to be around about 5 air changes now in grade C. So we're down very, very, very low. And already the preliminary results are easy pass. You know, it's kind of 20 to 30% of the limit for ISO 7 at rest at the moment. So and that's at that very low flow rate. So we're quite encouraged by that. You know, it operates as a good clean room should. The rest of the approach to qualification is, and we're midway through really commissioning now. We've done some early tests, as you've seen. We've done some dynamic tests as well, which I'll show you in a minute. You know, innovation is difficult, right? We've got a theory and we've got a hypothesis around stuff, but we need to prove it, not only to ourselves but also to external regulators. But and we're as we understand more about how the system performs in a dynamic way, we'll learn much more about how we can then demonstrate to regulators to prove it. So I can't stand here today and tell you that these are all the steps that we're going to go through. We have an hypothesis. We think that the science and the understanding is sound, and what we've seen so far in the testing is proven to be the case. As we get into proper PQ, OQ is not an issue. PQ is around we'll really discover things. But one of the things about when we optimize clean rooms now today and look at how we reduce energy in fixed flow clean rooms, you know, one of the challenges is recovery time. Because you don't want to, you can maybe maintain a steady state at very low airflow, but what happens if we have an incident? Well, recovery time on a dynamic system is not particularly relevant because you're always going to keep to that fixed level, whatever happens. So I'm going to step through now a few kind of, I know this is very, very small, but I'll step through quickly. You know, we have an HMI panel in the facility, so we are tracking all of the critical parameters. So contamination levels in the room, heat, temperature, humidity, differential pressure, oxygen levels, air change rates in each room. All of that data is fed in, and it's every 10 seconds or something. It's very, very fast. we're capturing all that all the time, so we can dive into a room and understand and see exactly what's happening in that room, and obviously have all that trending data as well for any investigations that may be required in the future. And kind of the overall concept around each clean room is we have supply VAVs and we have extract VAVs, variable air volume valves, and that's how we're controlling the air handling unit, fan speeds, and varying the flows in and out to critically maintain the pressure. And the pressure control is really stable, is very good, and it works well. So in terms of results, we're predicting something like a 50% reduction in the energy consumption over a standard fixed system for that kind of level. So assuming 15 air changes in a grade C, which is not unreasonable, I've seen many kind of levels of those clean rooms. Saw a few last week actually, up in the 60 to 100 air changes an hour in that facility. So, when you look at when we design a clean room, we'll go to the nuts of what we need, and 15 air changes is below. We're seeing 50% of that in terms of what we predict the operational annual cost would be, which is worth a significant amount to the operating budget for Cambridge Pharma. But critically, continuous monitoring as well on all of that data. So the charts here, and they haven't transferred very well on the screen, but kind of explain a little bit about the bottom one there is, so each one 0.5 micron and 5 micron below. This is in the system in dynamic mode. Time is hours across the bottom. Where that circled bit is and the red line sort of kicks up, the flat blue and the flat yellow lines are the compliance, or 10% of the compliance limit. So that is in operation. So we've got 10% of the limit that we're controlling to. And actually we kind of reached that on the 5 micron. 0.5 micron, never an issue really. It's always very, very flat. 5 micron is always a bit of a challenge. But as you see, the line kicks up because we had quite a number of people entering the facility at the time, a tour that whilst they were wearing gowning, it certainly wasn't grade C level gowning, and we had quite a lot of people in the room having a look around the facility. The system responded to that and brought that down very, very quickly. Also, nowhere near the compliance limit for that particular room. So we're very confident it works, and it definitely delivers a better environment at a lower operating cost and impact on the environment ultimately. So this is kind of the final slide. We're seeing the technology is pretty stable, and it works as we'd expect it to work. As we get into more of the commissioning, more of the detail, we'll learn a lot more about it, you know. But the physics and the science around clean rooms is pretty well understood, and what we're seeing in reality matches what the theory should be. Qualification is one of the most challenging aspects, I suppose. Now we've sorted the technology, and and we're challenging the mindset because we've been qualifying a clean room the same way for forever, and now we're saying, well, actually, we can't qualify it in the same way. So what is the way that we demonstrate that we're still in control, and demonstrate to ourselves, to the client, but critically to the regulators as well. But all of us have a vested interest in figuring out those problems. And we don't have all the answers right now, but that's okay, because that's innovation. But we're absolutely confident we can get it to work, and we'll get it to be believed to be working in the not too distant future. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. Appreciate David as well for your insights, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Keith.